Hi, and welcome to another episode of Your Wellness. I'm super excited to introduce to you my next guest, coming to you from Perth, Australia, where it's winter there and it's summer here. Haha. I have Amanda Lambrose coming to me. Thank you for coming, Amanda.
Lisa, thanks for having me on. This is wonderful.
Now, Amanda has a really extraordinary profession, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I haven't been able to talk about this with anybody. And I think there's so many of us that are going to learn so much from her. Amanda is a relationship therapist and a mental health advocate. And to back up her expertise in that, she also has a master's of forensic sexology. Wow, that's so fascinating. And she's the author of a whole bunch of books. She is a expert in a lot of other avenues. She has, oh my gosh, she has so many things. We're going to talk about everything that Amanda does. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thanks, Lisa. Am
Now,
I your first sexologist?
you are my first sexologist. I don't even think I've said that out loud before, so this is really cool.
Oh, it's a first for you. You're lucky.
I'm a virgin. Now there's a lot of things we can talk about, but we're gonna hash out some things. We're gonna be speaking off the cuff for this interview. Amanda, why don't you give us a little bit of a background on what got you to this place of a relationship therapist?
Oh my God, it's such a journey. And I think anyone who is an entrepreneur, it's a journey thing. So I started out as a Canadian kid in Ontario who was really interested in medicine and neurology and psychology. And so I did some undergrad work in Canada and then ended up going to medical school. And just got told by a professor that he didn't think I'd cut it because I had too much personality.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I know, right? And at the time, I absolutely was devastated. I think it made a beautiful impact on my life because now I talk so much about the importance of communication and clear communication and what that all means. So I looked at what my highest grades were, and my highest grades were law, psychology, and human sexuality. So I literally typed those into Google and thought I was going to go somewhere in the world and study forensic psychology. And when I typed it in, one of the first things that came up was forensic sexology. And I was like, oh, I can study that like a thing. And I was so excited. And I remember telling my parents about it, and they thought it was brilliant. And then I told my grandma about it, and she's like, girl, go for it. And so I made the move. I applied for it, I got accepted, came all the way over to Australia, not knowing a single person. And that was over 22 years ago now. And I have loved it. Well, in the meantime, I did finish my degree. I did fall in love. I married someone over here and had some babies over here too, who are now teenagers. But that's how it all went. It was a journey. And I learned so much about human anatomy and sex and sexuality and how it's all meant to work. And when it goes wrong, how it can go horribly wrong. And because it's such a taboo topic, we don't talk about it. We don't
Right.
talk about like, hey, as we age, you're going to become dry because that's what your body naturally does. It naturally just dries up. So you're not going to have the lube that you had when you were an 18-year-old horny kid. You know, you're still going to be a 40-year-old horny kid, but you're not going to have the lube available to you. Instead, you have money, go out and buy the lube. But again, like nobody has these conversations, or we feel really weird about having these conversations and talking about menopause or prostate issues, or I don't know, there's so much.
Mhm.
And so we shut down, we withdraw. It negatively impacts our relationship because one of my other degrees, I have a master's in counseling as well. And so for me, the two went hand in hand, that I thought, well, I've got to be a relationship therapist because I know so much about sex and anatomy and how it's meant to work. And then I do this counseling bit. And so many people come to me because their relationships are struggling. And usually their relationships are struggling because of something with their sexual health.
You must be a lot of
So
fun at parties, eh? Hey, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
So you're
I'm a
touching on
sexologist. How about you?
you're touching on something that's so critical, and you're right, we're not talking about it. And what I'm seeing is over 50% of the population are divorced. And
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it has to
And
do with what you just talked
that
about.
is a statistic for first divorces. So
Oh,
second divorces, it goes up over 70%.
wow.
So it dramatically increases. And the reason is because, again, we're not sitting there talking to someone saying, hey, I actually need to learn the skills and
Mhm.
strategies to have an awesome relationship. And I feel that's where I always say to my couples are set up to fail because we don't know how to relationship. And yet, like, well, we watch other people do it, right? But that doesn't give us the skills to do it. I could watch someone build a house, doesn't mean I know how to build a house.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we're kind of put at a disadvantage because we're not told how to relationship. We're just said like, go meet your person. Now make it work for 40 years. Good luck. Not going to teach you how, but
Yeah,
keep it
yeah.
up, and people just can't do that because they don't really understand how to communicate well. They don't really understand what being vulnerable with one person means.
Mhm.
So yeah, lots to learn.
Absolutely. And you're making me think of just like being a parent, how we are expected to be parents, but we don't know how to be a parent until we're a parent and we're figuring it out and making mistakes and
As you go.
as you go, right? Reading all the books and trying to be the best parent and screwing it up halfway through it and then realizing that you're just like everybody else, just trying to figure this life out.
Exactly.
So let's talk about some common pitfalls, maybe, or maybe something that you're seeing a trend with your couples. What are you seeing and what are you doing
I
about it?
think there's some really big challenges is that one of the things that a lot of people do is their relationship might be a little bit on the rocks and then they introduce children to the relationship.
Mm.
So they're like, oh, that's okay. But, when a kid comes along, it'll just solve everything. And I'm like, no. So the highest rates of divorce are for people who have children under the age of 7,
Okay.
followed by people who have children over the age of 18.
Mm-hmm. Is that the second marriages?
That's the second one. So it's the kind of, oh, they're now adults, I'm out. Like I'm
Okay.
going to wait around
Right.
until we feel we've raised our children. And then once our children are adults, I'm out.
Okay.
And to me, that's like 18 years of your relationship that you could have capitalized on and like learned how to relationship really well. But there's this stigma around, hey, I need to put my hand up and say, we don't have these, we don't know these. Can you come and teach us? And I think people see relationship therapy as something's got to go significantly wrong. And then you go to therapists to fix it.
Right.
And I wish people saw it as relationship education. Hey, we're pretty good. We just got the ebbs and flows like every relationship, but
Mhm.
we'd like to be better. Can you teach us those skills?
Gotcha.
And I think if people approached relationship education or relationship therapy that way, it would absolutely change the landscape of relationships.
I could only imagine. Yes, absolutely. It almost should be part of the discussion when you go for your marriage license,
Yes,
making it mandatory.
absolutely. Yeah. Have you had some form of relationship education
Mm,
outside of your own family of origin? Like
yeah, yeah.
whatever your parents have taught you, sorry, not good enough.
Not
Keep
enough.
going.
So
Yeah.
I'm very curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious about what does it mean to be a forensic psychologist?
So forensic sexologist is
Sexologist.
anything to do with crime, so law, legal crime, and sex.
Okay.
So originally, when I did my degree, I was doing some work with the Australian Federal Police, which is like the equivalent of like the FBI.
Okay.
So I was doing work there for like sex crimes. And so think the whole range of sex crimes. And I would be the analyst who would actually help explore how this happened, what happened, whether or not a person should be considered for bail or for release if they've been reprimanded, that kind of stuff. And then what happens is after you do that forensic side, because it's pretty heavy and you see some horrible stuff, they kind of say, try not to work in this space for too long. Usually it's about 3 years.
Mm.
And then they shift you and say, do something airy fairy, which is lovey dovey, happy relationships and make them
Yeah,
work.
for sure. Whoo, we just took a deep dive there into that. Okay, so I understand that. Now let's go back to relationships because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there that could really benefit from your expertise. Can you give us the 5 relationship myths that you share with others?
Absolutely. And if anyone wants these, feel free to just download them on my website.
Mhm.
They're there, they're available, go and grab them. But one of the biggest ones is that happy couples never fight. So
Mm.
people have this myth that like, well, if we're a happy couple, we never fight. And I'm like, who taught you that? So it's not the word fight. It's basically conflict. That's how we have to look at it. Every
Okay.
couple is going to have conflict because you are two unique individuals who
Mhm.
have two different opinions.
Right.
So two different opinions, of course, is going to result in conflict. And it's not about I'm right, you're wrong. It's cool. You have an opinion.
Mhm.
Let me understand it and hear it. I have an opinion. Hear mine. How can we make these two opinions work for us? And so I always say it becomes like this gentle rub. It doesn't need to be, like bloody knuckles.
I'm right. No,
It
I'm right. No, I'm right.
becomes an understanding, right?
Like it.
So yes, so happy, wonderful, lovey-dovey couples do have conflict because they're unique individuals who have opinions.
Okay, I agree.
So that's
Number
my first
2.
one. Number two is that good relationships are easy and they require no effort.
Ah.
And I just like, no, no, a great relationship requires daily consistency. It's like you make a choice to wake up that morning and choose your partner all over again that day. And you have to
Right.
put that level of effort in. So, what I typically hear is people say, oh, I put all the effort in like getting my person. And now that I got my person, I'm good. And I'm like,
Right.
no, it's like whatever effort you thought you put into getting your person, times that by like 30. And that's
Mm.
what you should be kind of putting in to keeping your person. And that's a good way of looking at it. So it's just a daily reminder that you need to put effort into your relationship. And if your foot is not on that pedal, like if you've kind of like eased off from the pedal a bit, it's going to demonstrate in your relationship.
Oh my God, I can't agree with you more. And like life gets in the way, children get in the way, work gets in the way, and I think a lot of couples tend to forget about taking care of each other and remembering we're still in a relationship. We still need to nurture this.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
regularly.
Regularly.
The third one is if my partner actually loved me, they would just know what I need.
Mm.
Now, I don't know about your partner, Lisa, but mine is definitely not a mind reader.
No, I don't have a
Uh,
mind reader either.
no, definitely doesn't have those skills, those magic skills. And I think that's the thing is that we get into this role that we assume our partner should. Da, da, da. Those are all horrible, toxic words in a relationship.
Mm.
And so, if you want your partner to know something about you, tell them. If you
Right?
want them to do something, ask them. Like it becomes a value of really great clear communication that unfortunately a lot of people don't possess those skills because they've never learned them before. So it becomes learning those skills all over again.
And Amanda, I'm proud to say I've been married 30 years. I'll have my 30th wedding anniversary coming up in a few months. And I still can't read my partner's mind and he still can't read ours. Like even though we've lived 30, probably 34 years together, we
Mm-hmm.
still have to set up each other for success by
You got it.
inviting them in to saying, this is what I'm thinking or this is what I need. So I like number 3
Absolutely.
as well.
And number four is that relationships should be 50-50. I'm
Mm.
like, what is that all about? No, just as your daily life ebbs and flows, your relationship's going to ebb and flow. So there's some points that your partner's going to be the 80 and you're going to be the 20, and that's fine because there'll be other moments where you're the 80 and they're the
Yes.
20.
Yes.
I think the thing that people struggle with is if they feel they're the 80 for too long,
Right.
then it starts to cause like an undercurrent of resentment. And we
Okay.
don't want our resentment to kind of like flow into a relationship. So we have to learn how to manage that ebb and flow and check in with each other. Like, hey, what on a scale of 0 to 100, where are you at today?
Right.
And if you give me anything over our magic number, so if our magic number is like 40%, if you give me anything over 40, I'm like, okay, you're doing pretty good. But if you turn around and you're like, I'm sitting at a 30, okay, what do you need from me?
Mm. I
Because
like
you're
that.
sitting really low. What can I do to level up? I might be at a 70 today. That's okay that you're at 30. I've got lots of spare energy. I've got lots of, what do you need from me? And just regularly checking in with your partner to make
Um,
sure that, you're both contributing to the relationship. So it can't be 50-50. Like
Absolutely.
it's this, I don't know. I don't know where that even came from. I don't think it's a Hollywood myth. I don't know. Maybe it's in a movie. I'm not sure. But somehow people walk into a relationship and just go, yeah, well, everything's going to be 50-50. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Who
And
told you
whose
that?
reality is that for sure? And I like that you said it. We do have to keep checking in, right? Like, how are you? Where are you today? Because we're not walking around with signs on our chest saying where we're at. So we do have to notice and take
Yeah.
time to take stock. I like that. Okay, these are great. Number 5.
Number 5 is that your partner should complete you. Oh,
Eye roll. Cue the eye roll.
oh, it is so hard for me to hear that one because it's like, well, no, you should actually complete yourself.
Mm.
Your
Hmm.
partner is an added bonus.
Right.
So if anything, when I talk to my couples, I say like you should be like a really wonderful book and your partner should be that yellow highlighter. That anytime I pick up a really wonderful book and there's something that I think, oh, that's so special, I'm going to highlight it. So when I go back to that book, I look at that specialness to it. That's what I see a relationship should be. So you should be the best version of yourself, complete yourself, and bring that to a relationship. And then your partner is just that bonus.
Okay, so let's wrap. Can we recap those? Number 1, do you remember?
Sure.
Number 1 is
Happy couples never fight.
happy couples never fight. Is myth number 2.
Good relationships don't require any effort.
Don't require any more. Okay. Myth number 3.
If my partner loved me, then they would just automatically know what I need.
Uh-huh. Okay. Myth number 4.
Is that all relationships should be 50-50?
Number 5.
Is that my partner should complete me.
Oh, wonderful.
You're so
Okay,
welcome.
so I love those myths, and I know there's
What?
people out there are struggling in their relationships
Yeah, regularly. And they're like
regularly.
terrified to put their hand up and say, like, hey, I just need to talk to someone. And
Mm,
also, let me be clear, talk to someone who has expertise in the field. Like, yes, you can go and see your own therapist, which is great and wonderful. But if your therapist doesn't have an expertise in relationships, they're not going to be the best guide for you. So,
mhm.
like, find someone who has that level of expertise so that they know this and they can guide you the right way.
Yeah.
I always say it's like reading a trade manual when you're actually trying to do cooking. Like, it won't equate.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
need to find the right resources for the right reasons. And I'll give you a bonus myth too.
Okay, let's go.
Happy couples have sex all the time.
And they don't?
No. So the national average is once every 11 days.
Once every
And that's
11
the
days.
average, which means there's going to be some who are having a lot more, and there's going to be some who are having it a lot less. 11 days is the average.
Oh my gosh. And like on a scale of 1 to 5, is this like at a 5 level of intense and length and excitement? Like what's the quality?
Quality is hanging out with your partner, some skin on skin contact. Doesn't matter if it's 2 minutes or 30 minutes. It's that quality and quantity that comes combined so that you feel a connection with your partner.
So you're both feeling loved and connected.
And don't get me wrong, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Nice every now and then.
Yeah.
Um, because you sometimes you just need to get it out of your system.
Okay.
But when people are like, oh, we should be having sex every day or every second day, I'm like, where did you read that? Like,
Right.
no,
So
that's
we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to maintain a certain level of relationship, is what I'm hearing.
completely unrealistic pressures on ourselves for a lot of things, that we constantly feel we need to be competing with the Joneses, when in
Mhm.
reality, it's like, do we even know what the Joneses are doing? Probably not, because you haven't bothered asking.
Right, right, right.
And if you do bother asking, chances are they're not being honest.
Right, they're probably just gonna lie about it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So has there been any, if you're looking at all the years of doing this therapy, is there anything that stands out that maybe is very common that someone could integrate into their lifestyle after listening to this podcast? Do you have a quick
Um, I'd
advice?
say the biggest challenge that I notice is that people wait too long to get help.
Okay.
So when you start noticing the rockiness,
Hmm.
that's when you really should kind of like put your hand up and get some help. Unfortunately, most of the people that I see, when I ask them, when should you have come in here? It's
Right.
usually 18 to 24 months before. Um, and in that situation, 18 to 24 months of unresolved conflict
Hmm.
becomes a bigger issue. So what I would say is open communication is really important, but the minute you notice that things aren't going great, it's like it's a spot fire. Jump on that spot fire sooner rather than later, because if you don't jump on that spot fire, it becomes a wildfire. And those are not easy to put out.
Do you think that every marriage or every long-term relationship has the ability to come together? Or have you had a couple where you've like, yeah, this isn't ever going to work out?
The only ones I feel that way. So in 22 years experience, yeah, I've had a few that I'm like, oh goodness, oh, like it doesn't matter how much work you put in, it's not going to happen. But usually those ones are because they've left it like 5 years.
Okay.
Like the level of contempt and dislike of the person, like when you get to the point that you no longer like your person,
Okay.
that's problematic. Um, Other than that, if you don't let it go on that long, I think all couples, if they learn a few great and easy to understand, like it's not rocket science, easy to understand skills, and then consistently apply them, you could fundamentally change the facade of your relationship.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
But
Like
you got to
everything
be
else.
willing to do the work.
Yeah, you're right. And catch it early and be prepared to do the work.
Yeah. And like anything, it's like work. Like, you know, if you want to lose a whole bunch of weight and they say start doing some cardio, like go and do your 10,000 steps. If on one day you do 10 steps, you're not putting in the work.
Hmm.
So you might have all the right intent, but if you're not doing the work, it's not going to be the outcome you really want.
Yeah, what are you expecting? So,
Exactly.
so moving forward, Amanda, we're going into the summer. Well, it's summer for us, Canada,
Winter for us in
winter for
Australia.
you. For the rest of the year or the next couple of years, I feel like we're still recovering from the pandemic, and a lot of relationships broke down over those years. Do you see any hope in our future and in the recovery of COVID in terms of how we're communicating with our partners and our children?
I think it gave us a really great learning opportunity because so many people were stuck in homes with their partner for extended period of time, whereas normally work is an area of reprieve. It's like I can walk away from my relationship to go to work and I have 8 hours there where I don't have to think about my relationship. So I think where the pandemic came in was it kind of forced people to be actively in their relationship, and a lot of people don't know how to do that, and
Mhm.
that's where we had some problems. So I think now as the world starts to slowly and gradually return back to a new normal,
Mhm.
um, they're going to start to realize like, okay, there's things we can work on our relationship. I shouldn't have to want to escape to work instead of dealing with what's going on in my relationship. So I think there's some really great positives, but I do come from a space of positive psychology. So I think there's some really beautiful bonuses that that pandemic has provided us with. Again, you just need to learn what those lessons are and stay consistent with them.
And you have a saying, date night is cheaper than a divorce. I love
Yes.
that. So
Yes,
date
you
night
should
still
be
work.
dating your partner on a regular basis. So if it has been a month since your previous date, go back and date your person. And there's rules to date night. You can't just like go and sit on your phone the whole
Right,
time while, watching a movie or eating dinner. That's not a date. Think
right.
about what you dated when you first met. Like, what was it that you did? Where did you go? What kind of fun did you have? Chances are the phone wasn't in your hand. Chances are you weren't watching a screen and not each other, So, yeah, date night is definitely cheaper than a divorce.
And chances are you weren't talking about your kids.
No, definitely. You don't want to be talking about your kids. You don't want
Mm.
to talk about work. You definitely weren't talking about logistics, like who's driving who to the airport and picking up
Yeah,
the kids on. No,
yeah.
those are all completely off topic subjects. You're not even allowed to mention them on date nights
Okay.
if you're serious about date nights.
Yeah, for sure. I like those. Well, Amanda, I've learned a lot. I don't know, like I said, I don't know a lot of relationship experts. So if you can't find one, where do you go, Amanda? You
Right here.
yes. We can call up
There's
Amanda. Like, how do you find a
there
relationship therapist?
So in reality, there's relationship therapists all over the world. One of the best things you can do is look for like a Gottman trained therapist. So it's a style of relationship therapy. Type into Google like marriage and relationship educators. There's usually associations all over the world that actually have a list of educators.
Okay.
So there's ways to find people who have done specific training with regard to relationships, and those are the people that I'd recommend going to.
Okay. Use Gottman. What did you say? Gottman?
Gottman, Gottman. So
Okay.
they were a husband and wife who, John and Julie Gottman, who are like the gurus of relationships from way back. And they're this wonderful couple who have designed like a training package, different levels of the package, but of how to work with couples and how to make the most out of relationships. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, we didn't talk a lot about sex, which some people might be disappointed. So maybe our next podcast will get a little more into the sheets of that.
Saucy, a little more into the sheets.
Yeah, a little more into the sheets. But thank you for your time, Amanda. We've been trying to get this podcast together for some months, so I'm glad we were able to do it. And thank you for your time and keep doing such wonderful work.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome.